Ever walked into a room and there's that smell, that kind of musty smell, and you just get this feeling like something's going on in that carpet?
Oh, absolutely. It's like
Oh,
that sixth sense we've all developed when it comes to questionable carpets.
right. And it makes you wonder what secrets are lurking down there. And more importantly, could you ever really clean it, or is it a lost cause?
It's a question I get asked a lot,
Oh, well.
actually. And it's not just about the smell, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about potential health risks, too.
Exactly. So, for this deep dive, we're tackling that question head on. We've got this fascinating case study from R&R magazine. They found this vacant office building, totally empty, but it had this hidden leak, a leaky water heater.
Oh, that's never good. A leaky water heater is like sending out an engraved invitation to mold.
It really is. And in this case, the mold took that invitation and ran with it. They found Aspergillus penicillium-like spores, and a lot of them throughout the building, especially in the carpets.
Those spores are nasty little things.
Hmm.
For people with allergies, they can wreak havoc. Respiratory problems, too, in some cases.
Yeah, not the kind of surprise you want when you're renovating a building. So naturally, you'd think, rip out those carpets, start fresh. But that's not what they did in this case study.
They decided to give cleaning a shot, and not just any cleaning. Mind you, they went all out with a professional-grade deep clean.
It makes you wonder, can cleaning really stand up to something like that? I mean, when it comes to mold, we're talking about a microscopic enemy, right?
Absolutely. But sometimes, even those microscopic enemies can be defeated with the right approach. In this case study, they decided to use something called the HEPA sandwich method.
The HEPA sandwich sounds intriguing. Does it actually involve sandwiches? Asking for a friend?
Maybe not edible sandwiches, but it is a multi-layered approach, which I guess is where the sandwich part comes in.
Hmm.
It all starts with the HEPA vacuum.
HEPA vacuum, those are the ones with those super powered filters, right? The ones that trap, like, everything.
Exactly. HEPA stands for high-efficiency particulate air, and those filters are designed to capture even the tiniest of particles, including mold spores.
So they're armed with these HEPA vacuums, sucking up all those tiny spores, but that's just the first step, right? What comes next in this HEPA sandwich?
Well, you can't have a sandwich without the filling. In this case, it's hot water extraction. They basically give the carpets a deep clean using hot water and a special antimicrobial agent.
Hot water extraction, so like pressure washing, but for carpets.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. It's really effective at flushing out dirt, debris, and of course, any remaining mold spores that the HEPA vacuum might have missed.
And I'm guessing that antimicrobial agent is there to really take care of any lingering mold, right? Like kicking it while it's down.
Exactly. They use something called bio-oxygen carpet cleaner in this case, and it targets the mold at its source, preventing it from growing back.
Okay, so we've got the HEPA vacuum, the hot water extraction with antimicrobial action. That's a 1-2 punch right there. What's the final layer of this cleaning sandwich?
The final touch. And it's crucial. Drying. They meticulously dried the carpets using a combination of dehumidifiers and fans. Really went all out.
Drying, of course, because mold loves moisture, right? Take away the moisture, you take away its chance to thrive.
Precisely.
Hmm.
It's all about creating an environment where mold simply can't survive. Think of it like this. You wouldn't leave a damp towel crumpled on the floor, would you?
Definitely not. Mold city. So they dried everything out, ensuring no sneaky spores were left with a chance to stage a comeback. Did they do one last pass with the HEPA vacuum just to be extra safe?
Oh, absolutely. You
Right.
can never be too cautious when it comes to mold. That final vacuum session is like the cherry on top, making sure they captured any stragglers that might have popped up during the drying process.
Okay, so they pulled out all the stops with this cleaning method, but the real question is, did it actually work?
Right, because all this effort would be pointless if it didn't make a difference. So remember those air samples we talked about, the ones they took before cleaning? Well, before cleaning, the main lobby had a spore count of 2,448 spores per cubic meter of air.
Wow, that sounds like a lot, like microscopic rush hour traffic in that lobby.
It basically was. But get this, after the HEPA sandwich, the spore count plummeted to just 48.
48, that's what, a 98% reduction?
Something like that. Pretty incredible, right? But they didn't just rely on air samples. They also took surface samples from the carpets themselves after the cleaning.
Okay, so that tells us if any mold was actually hiding within the carpet fibers after all that cleaning.
Exactly. And the results are reassuring. The lab analysis showed negligible fungal presence in the carpets after the HEPA sandwich.
So the cleaning basically wiped out the mold from the carpets. That's impressive. But did they just trust the lab results, or did they actually, look at the carpets to see if there was any visible mold?
They did both. They followed up with visual inspections of the carpets in 8 different areas of the building. And you know what? 7 out of those 8 areas passed inspection with no visible mold.
Wow, so it wasn't just a numbers game, the results were actually visible. That's a pretty convincing testament to this HEPA sandwich method.
It really is.
Yeah.
But, and this is important to keep in mind, this was a professional job, done with professional equipment and expertise.
Right, it wasn't just someone grabbing a spray bottle of vinegar and hoping for the best.
Exactly. So while this case study is incredibly promising, it begs the question, what about those everyday mold situations we might encounter at home?
Right, like finding a small patch of mold under the bathroom rug. Is it even worth trying to salvage that? Or are we looking at a straight to the trash situation? I mean, it's like finding a moldy sandwich shoved in the back of your fridge. You wouldn't even think twice, right? Straight to the trash. So, how do we know when it's time to give our carpets the old heave-ho versus when a good cleaning might actually do the trick?
It's a great question and a tough one, honestly. It's not always a clear-cut answer. The article does mention a few things to consider, like how bad is the mold, really? If it's just on the surface, just on the fibers of the carpet, cleaning might be a good option. But if it's like soaked down into the backing or even worse, gotten to the subfloor underneath, yeah, you're probably better off just replacing the whole thing.
It's like trying to salvage a cake that's burnt to a crisp, right? Some things are beyond saving.
Exactly. And just like with cakes, sometimes the ingredients make a difference. If you've got natural fiber carpets like wool or cotton, those tend to be a bit more, well, delicate, more susceptible to mold and harder to clean. Synthetic carpets, they're a bit tougher, but even they have their limits.
So it's kind of like knowing the weak points of your carpet, right? But even if cleaning is an option, is this HEPA sandwich the only way to go? Or are there other mold-busting techniques out there?
Well, there are a few other methods out there, although the research on how well they work on carpets specifically is still a bit iffy. Some companies use dry cleaning methods, things like encapsulation or using absorbent compounds,
Yeah.
but those might not be as effective if you've got mold that's really dug in deep. Then you've got ozone treatment, which is kind of interesting. It can actually kill mold spores, but it doesn't remove them. It's a bit like setting off a bug bomb, Gets rid of the immediate problem, but doesn't clean up the mess.
So it's like a temporary solution, not a deep clean. But it's interesting to hear that there are different approaches being used. Are there any like cutting-edge mold-fighting technologies on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of cool research happening in this field. UVC light, for example.
Wow.
It's fantastic at killing mold spores on surfaces, but it doesn't penetrate very deep, so it has its limitations. And then you have enzymatic cleaners, which are fascinating. They basically break down the mold at a molecular level.
So it's less about brute force and more about a precise, targeted attack on those mold molecules. Sounds pretty high-tech. But it seems like, regardless of the cleaning method, it all comes down to knowing when enough is enough. When do you just cut your losses and accept that replacement is the best option?
Couldn't agree more. And I think that's an important takeaway for our listeners. Even with the most thorough cleaning, there's always that lingering question, what about the things we can't see? And the article briefly touches on mycotoxins, which are those nasty byproducts that some molds produce.
That's a bit unsettling, right? Even if you can't see or smell any mold, there could be these invisible threats lurking in the fibers.
Exactly. And it really highlights the importance of bringing in the professionals, especially for more serious cases. They have the expertise and equipment to assess the situation accurately and recommend the best course of action.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this deep dive has given everyone a better understanding of what to do, or at least what to think about if they find themselves facing a moldy carpet situation.
Right. Cleaning can be effective, but it's not always a guaranteed solution. And sometimes replacement really is the best way to go.
For sure. And as always, knowledge is power. The more you know about mold, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions about your home and your health. So until next time, stay curious and stay mold-free.